Nobody cares. Nobody cares about your excuses. Nobody cares about why you're not getting things done. Nobody cares until you do is also the book that you need to be reading. This book, written by Robert Hunt and Salem Fine, is something that I just finished recently. I thoroughly enjoyed it because I thought it was like the best playbook on accountability, on how to get out of excuses and blaming and move into really taking charge of your life. It had a really easy to read format. Both Robert and Salem are very honest and vulnerable in how they share their struggles, their failures. They talk about the deep, the uncomfortable parts of their life, and they use it as why this kind of model of what they're teaching is really useful. And it starts with kind of putting it out in the format of a mountain, which I really like because they give you visual aids and lots of tools. And they talk about the difference between being responsible and being accountable for an outcome, right? So I'm responsible for getting something done. So I'll say, well, yeah, I sent the email, I made the phone call, and I did the part. Sure, I was being responsible. But when I feel accountable for the outcome, we are willing to go above and beyond. We don't just settle for being average. We are thinking outside the box. And that's really what being accountable is about. It also really draws light to the fact that back in the day, our actions had clear consequences. And so if we didn't chop up the firewood, we would freeze at night. If we didn't hunt, we wouldn't have dinner. But today there's a lot of space between actions and consequences, and that's why accountability is so much more important. And it's also why we see a lot of people kind of making choices, not really realizing what they're doing. This book goes into kind of breaking down where you start, right? Most of us are in the self-oblivion where we say, I didn't know that I was going to get a ticket for, doing that. Oh, I didn't know I was going to get a penalty. You move up then into blaming, where you're putting the blame, something's happened, but it's always, someone else's fault. A little above that is what they call excuses, which is, yeah, okay, I know I did something, and the reason is, right? So we're still not taking accountability. And after that, there is waiting and hoping. And I love how this book says that waiting and hoping are basically placeholders for inaction. We can wait and pray and hope for things like world peace and, cure to cancer. But when it comes to your own life, waiting and hoping are just not the way to be doing it. It means you're not doing enough. And the question is, why aren't you? Have you done everything in your power? And if the answer is no, then why not? Finally, you got to just embrace that this is a bad situation, right? You got to kind of see it for what it is. And that's called kind of embracing, how sucky it is. Once you start taking action, it's going to feel tough, it's going to feel uncomfortable, and they really walk you through it, right? They go step by sharing personal stories of what that's like. And as you kind of go up and kind of see all that lies ahead, you also have to give yourself grace that you are going to slip up, right? And also, you're not meant to summit every mountain. So it kind of helps you also take charge of what areas, what domains of your life do you really want to be focusing on? What is really important to you, right? Because obviously, all of us are not going to be able to do this all the time for all the realms of our life. But they talk about the empowerment and the freedom that comes when we acknowledge and face our problems and we do things about them. I also really like how they give lots of very real world examples from both their personal lives as well as their professional lives. And so, as catchy as the title is, which is Nobody Cares, and I'm like, that's not very nice. When it sits on my coffee table, people are like, wow, Hiba, you're reading a book called Nobody Cares. And I'm like, well, that's the catch. Nobody cares until you do. The point is that nobody cares about your excuses. Nobody cares about who you're blaming for your problems until you decide to change it. Nobody else can. It's available on Amazon. I highly recommend it. It's a quick read. It's a very enjoyable read, and I feel it really gives you awesome food for thought. And not to mention, I feel these two men who wrote the book are solid people. So enjoy.